Hello and welcome to my April month-end wrap-up and May TBR. In April I read 2 books for my Chunksters Reading Challenge, one of which I DNF'd and the other of which was brilliant. I engaged in 2 read-alongs with Matthew of Maybury Book Club and we began a third. I read 2 novels recommended by booktubers. I read 3 plays and 2 narrative poems by William Shakespeare. To begin with, I read 220 pages of 916 of Quicksilver by Neal Stephenson before bailing. I was reading this novel for the Chunksters Reading Challenge, so I persevered a lot longer than I should have done in the hope that it would improve, but it didn't. The novel consists of detailed discussions about scientific experiments by members of the Royal Society. There is no discernible plot, no dramatic tension, and no character development. The academic style writing is more suited to a scientific textbook than a novel. The novel is full of diffuse incidents with a diverse cast of characters who, though historically fascinating in themselves, fail to fascinate in this sprawling hodgepodge of a novel. Meandering and overstuffed, every science experiment of that age was meticulously described and dissected. If there is a plot, it is swamped under the accumulated mountain of detail. It seems that if Stephenson discovered a fact, he felt compelled to include it. Stephenson included some of the most fascinating characters of the age in this novel, but he did nothing with them to make them either engaging or appealing. If Stephenson wanted to represent the chaos and confusion of a time in history when there was great change in many areas of life and thought, he might have done so without producing a chaotic and confusing novel. Often the dialogue is confusing in that the speaker is not identified often enough to follow and to understand who is saying what and to whom. There are those who think that Stephenson is ingenious and that his novels are addictive, but heroin is also addictive, but is it good for you? Therefore my rating for this novel is D. Instead I read Team of Rivals by Doris, Kearns, Goodwin, which was 754 pages long. Now, this Pulitzer Prize-winning author is one whom I could easily become addicted to. Her brilliant conception of contrasting and comparing Lincoln with Seward, Bates and Chase, his 3 rivals for the Republican nomination in 1860, was brilliantly executed. All 4 men and several others whom she discusses are all fascinating in their own right, and Goodwin tells us enough for us to get a clear conception of these characters and does not overload her narrative with excessive material. Instead, she has done what all the best biographers do, selected from her extensive research the salient facts to tell a compelling and involving story of the attitudes and interactions of these fascinating characters during a time of national crisis. I have no hesitation in rating this marvellous book as A. And I donated £10 to Book Aid International on completion. Total donations to Book Aid International to date equal £429, and I want to thank everyone who is participating in the Chunksters Reading Challenge throughout 2020, and especially to those who are continuing to donate throughout the current crisis. Your commitment and unselfish giving inspire me with the determination to continue with the challenge to support Book Aid International in providing the books that will enrich, improve and change lives for the better. In April I also read Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert along with Matthew of Maybury Book Club, and you can see my review in the info cards above. Matthew and I then read The Toilers of the Sea by Victor Hugo, which was also one of the recommendations I read this month. And you can also see my review of this novel in the info cards above. Matthew and I then began to read Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy, and I have read 255 pages of 488. I also read 3 plays by William Shakespeare and 2 of his narrative poems. The first play I read was Richard III. Richard, or Gloucester, is driven with ambition to become king, and he's not about to let anything or anyone, including King Henry VI or his elder brother, stop him. However, Richard is more than just a villain. His dazzlingly evil nature, combining viciousness and wit, makes him as important and valuable to the drama as any hero. He's regarded as Shakespeare's first great creation. As a theatrical character, Richard, in Shakespeare's hands, murders his way to the throne, kills the king, his brother, his young nephews, his wife, and a number of political opponents. Shakespeare has Richard knowingly adopting an evil nature in conformity with his supposed physical deformity, in which Shakespeare has Richard theorizing that his nature has placed him beyond ordinary relationships. But having attained the throne, his wit and resourcefulness desert him, and he is eventually killed at the Battle of Bosworth. My rating for this play is A. The first narrative poem I read was Venus and Adonis. I didn't understand every verse of this long poem, which contains 99 6-line verses, a total of 1,194 lines, but I was able to follow the drift of the narrative. It tells of the goddess Venus's infatuation for a mortal human, the young hunter Adonis. In erotic and humorous passages, Venus courts the youth, attempting to persuade him to make love to her. Adonis resists her advances, being unmoved by what he sees as simple lust. He prefers to go hunting. The next day, at dawn, Venus discovers the body of the dead Adonis, who has been killed by a wild boar. The poem ends with her lament. The second narrative poem was The Rape of Lucrece. I found this poem even more difficult to read than Venus and Adonis, and it is certainly more tragic and less enjoyable. It consists of 265 verses of 7 lines each, a total of 1,855 lines. Basically, Lucrece commits suicide after having been raped by Tarquin, the son of the Roman king. This event led to the kingdom being replaced by the Roman Republic. I doubt if I'll ever read either of these narrative poems again. They are difficult to follow at times, and I prefer to concentrate on the plays which are more accessible. So my rating for these poems is B. The second play I read was The Comedy of Errors. This was a fun play to read. The plot is complex and requires attention to be paid to which of the 2 pairs of twins are speaking so as to get the joke of each of the errors that are being perpetrated by the misunderstandings due to the failures of each twin in recognizing that they are addressing the wrong one at any given time. Very enjoyable, and my rating for this play is A. The third play I read was Love's Labour's Lost. 4 men have agreed to swear off female company for 3 years to concentrate on study. However, emotion wins out over will, and they all fall in love. But it is not as simple as it ought to be, and they are compelled to undergo a kind of probationary period of 1 year before their sweethearts will agree to have anything to do with them. A bit contrived and far-fetched, but enjoyable in places and worth a read. My rating for this play is B. I also read Peace Like a River by Leif Enger, as recommended by Joey of Game of Authors. When Israel Finch and Tommy Basker, the town bullies, break into the home of school caretaker Jeremiah Land, wielding a baseball bat and looking for trouble, they find more of it than even they expected. before, 17-year-old Davy is sitting up in bed waiting for them with a Winchester rifle. After killing them and being arrested for murder, Davy manages to break out. He steals a horse and disappears. His family feels his absence so sorely that the three of them, father, daughter and son, set out on a quest to find him. At first I was put off by the magical elements masquerading as miracles in the story, but I quickly put aside my reservations and began to enjoy both the luscious writing and the involving story. First of all, let me deal with the magic versus miracle element. In the Bible, miracles are used by God for a specific purpose and for a definite end, and they emanate from Him. Magical acts, on the other hand, are used for self-aggrandizement and are performed either by individuals or spiritual entities other than God to create wonder and to mystify. It is in the latter sense that magical acts are performed in this story, and even though they are ascribed to God, they are not miracles emanating from Him. Now to the story. The characters, the style and the story are all excellent. The author kept surprising me with unforeseen developments, and I couldn't wait to find out what happens next. However, this only appertains to the first third of the story, which I thoroughly enjoyed. The last 2/3, in which the family takes off to find Davy, seems to lose the tension of the first third, and it was merely okay rather than anything special. The goodwill that the author had generated in the first third kept me reading until the end, just to find out what happens in respect of Davy, who is being hunted by a federal officer. I had the feeling that the author wanted me to root for Davy and his family, but my sympathies were all with the federal officer, who was denigrated by the narrator, but who was carrying out his duty in chasing a killer to bring him to justice. It is this sense of justice that the author seems to lack, as he allows the federal officer to be killed without anyone being called to account, and likewise he allows David to vanish without being brought to justice to account for the killings he has perpetrated. Unaccountably, the author uses quasi-Christian language and attitudes to justify the actions of the Land family and to explain the magical and mystical elements that underpins the story. The last 2 chapters in particular are not only mystical but mystifying and defy all logic. The author, along with the rest of traditional Christianity, has been infected with pagan Greek philosophy of the immortality of the soul, and has been influenced by medieval fantasy of visions of souls transmigrating to heaven, purgatory or hell. These doctrines underpin Christian belief today and are productive of these mystical, magical fantasies. A sound grounding in the epistles of Paul, who taught that people are dead when they die and that they would only live again at the resurrection, would put paid to this quasi-Christian nonsense. So my overall rating for this novel is C. I also read about and listened to the Pieces for April in Year of Wonder by Clemency Burton-Hill for my Year of Wonder challenge, and I donated £2 to Book Aid International on completion. For my May TBR, I'm going to continue reading Jude the Obscure by Victor Hugo, along with Matthew of Maybury Book Club. I'll also continue reading through Shakespeare's complete works, continuing with A Midsummer Night's Dream. I've also begun to read The American Senator by Anthony Trollope for Steve's Read-Along. For my Chunksters Reading Challenge, I'm going to read Les Misérables by Victor Hugo, and the May selections in Year of Wonder by Clemency Burton-Hill. And now, here's a quick recap, and I'll be back soon with another BookTube video.